For millennia, the legacy of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, has been carved in stone, etched in history books, and immortalized in the ranks of the terracotta army. He unified warring states, standardized currency and writing, and laid the groundwork for the China we know today. But what if the story we thought we knew was only half the truth? What if the very foundations of this historical narrative were built on a secret, hidden deep within the DNA of those who lived near him? That's precisely the question that has rocked the world of archaeology and ancient history. Recent scientific advancements have allowed researchers to delve into the genetic makeup of individuals buried in close proximity to Emperor Qin's monumental tomb complex, a sprawling necropolis that dwarfs even some modern cities. And the findings? Well, they're nothing short of revolutionary. Imagine the hushed anticipation in the lab as the first DNA sequences began to emerge. Picture the scientists hunched over their monitors, their faces illuminated by the glow of data streams, piecing together fragments of the past like an intricate jigsaw puzzle. What they unearthed wasn't a clear-cut confirmation of the emperor's supposed Han Chinese origins. Instead, it was a far more complex and nuanced picture, a genetic tapestry woven with threads from diverse ethnic groups across ancient Asia. The initial DNA analysis, conducted on remains recovered from burial sites surrounding the main mausoleum mound, revealed the presence of genetic markers associated with populations originating from Central Asia, potentially even nomadic tribes who roamed the steppes to the north and west of ancient China. This wasn't the homogeneous genetic signature expected from individuals closely linked to the heart of the Qin dynasty. It suggested a degree of ethnic diversity that challenges the conventional understanding of the emperor's inner circle and the social structure of his reign. Now let's be clear. These findings don't definitively rewrite the history books overnight. The DNA doesn't belong to Qin Shi Huang himself, at least not yet. Remember, his tomb remains sealed, a treasure trove of historical information locked away beneath layers of earth and mystery. But the implications of this discovery are profound nonetheless. Firstly, it forces us to reconsider the narrative of ethnic purity that has often been associated with the rise of the Qin dynasty. For centuries, Qin Shi Huang has been portrayed as a symbol of Han Chinese strength and unity, a figure whose lineage was unblemished and intrinsically tied to the land he conquered. These DNA findings suggest that the reality may have been far more fluid, that the borders of ethnic identity in ancient China were less rigidly defined than previously imagined. Perhaps the emperor's court was more cosmopolitan than we give it credit for, attracting individuals from diverse backgrounds who sought power, influence, or simply a better life within the burgeoning empire. Maybe intermarriage between different ethnic groups was more common than historical records suggest, blurring the lines of ancestry and creating a more hybridized society. Secondly, this discovery raises intriguing questions about the very nature of power and legitimacy in ancient China. If individuals with non-Han Chinese ancestry held positions of influence within the Qin court, what does this tell us about the emperor's view of ethnicity and his willingness to embrace diversity in the pursuit of political stability and imperial expansion? Did he see ethnicity as a barrier to advancement, or did he recognize the value of incorporating talent and expertise from different cultural backgrounds? It's also worth considering the potential political motivations behind the historical narratives that have shaped our understanding of Qin Shi Huang. Was the emphasis on Han Chinese purity a deliberate attempt to solidify the emperor's authority and create a sense of shared identity among his subjects? Did later dynasties consciously downplay the presence of non-Han Chinese individuals in the Qin court to reinforce their own claims to legitimacy and maintain a cohesive national identity? The DNA revelation surrounding the remains near Qin Shi Huang's tomb serves as a stark reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's a complex tapestry of interwoven narratives, biases, and interpretations, constantly being re-evaluated and rewritten in light of new evidence. And in this case, The evidence comes in the form of tiny molecules, the very building blocks of life, whispering secrets from a forgotten past. But the story doesn't end here. In fact, it's only just beginning. The potential to unlock even greater secrets lies dormant within the Emperor's sealed tomb, awaiting the day when science and diplomacy can converge to unravel the ultimate mystery, the DNA of Qin Shi Huang himself. What secrets does his genetic code hold? What surprises await us within the very essence of the man who shaped the destiny of a nation? We'll explore that possibility next. All right, everyone, let's turn our attention to the main event, the Emperor's actual DNA. For centuries, the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang has stood as an impenetrable fortress, guarding its secrets beneath layers of earth and stone. Within its heart lies the Emperor himself, presumably undisturbed since his entombment over 2 millennia ago. The tantalizing question is, could his DNA still be intact? And if so, what could it reveal? The prospect of analyzing Qin Shi Huang's DNA is nothing short of revolutionary. Imagine gaining direct access to the genetic blueprint of one of history's most influential figures. We could potentially confirm or deny the recent findings from the remains surrounding his tomb, providing definitive proof of his ancestry. Beyond that, the possibilities are almost limitless. We could analyze his genetic predisposition to certain diseases, offering insights into his health and potential causes of death. We could explore his physical traits, perhaps revealing details about his height, build, or even susceptibility to baldness, painting a far more complete picture of the man behind the legend. The analysis could even shed light on potential familial relationships, identifying descendants or clarifying long-standing historical debates about his lineage. But before we get carried away with the possibilities, let's face the monumental challenges that stand in our way. First and foremost is the issue of access. The Chinese government has maintained a strict policy of non-excavation for the Emperor's tomb, prioritizing its preservation over scientific inquiry. This cautious approach is understandable, given the tomb's historical and cultural significance. Any attempt to open it carries significant risks, potentially damaging priceless artifacts or even causing the entire structure to collapse. Even if permission were granted, the technical hurdles are immense. After over 2,000 years underground, the Emperor's remains are likely to be heavily degraded. DNA, a fragile molecule at the best of times, breaks down over time due to exposure to moisture, temperature fluctuations, and bacterial contamination. Extracting usable DNA from ancient samples is already a difficult task, even under controlled laboratory conditions. Attempting to do so within the confines of a sealed tomb, facing unknown environmental conditions, would be exponentially more challenging. Contamination is another major concern. The tomb is likely teeming with microorganisms, and any attempt to collect DNA samples risks introducing modern genetic material, skewing the results and rendering them meaningless. Sophisticated protocols would be required to ensure the integrity of the samples, minimizing the risk of contamination and distinguishing ancient DNA from modern sources. Then there's the sheer scale of the project. The Emperor's tomb is a vast and complex structure, filled with booby traps, hidden chambers, and potentially hazardous materials, like mercury. Gaining access to the burial chamber itself would require careful planning, advanced technology, and a healthy dose of luck. Robots and drones would likely be essential, navigating the labyrinthine corridors and collecting samples remotely. Moreover, the existing technology may not be advanced enough to guarantee success. Ancient DNA analysis is a rapidly evolving field, but there are still limitations to what we can achieve with current methods. The Emperor's DNA may be too fragmented or damaged to yield meaningful results, even with the most sophisticated techniques. Despite these challenges, scientists are exploring innovative approaches to potentially access the Emperor's DNA without fully opening the tomb. One promising avenue involves using minimally invasive techniques, such as drilling small boreholes into the tomb walls and inserting micro-robots equipped with cameras and sampling devices. These robots could navigate the interior, collect small amounts of bone fragments or other biological material, and then extract DNA for analysis. Another strategy involves analyzing the air within the tomb. It's possible that trace amounts of DNA could be present in the air, either from decaying organic matter or from the emperor's remains themselves. By collecting air samples and using highly sensitive DNA sequencing techniques, scientists might be able to piece together fragments of his genetic code. Some researchers are even exploring the possibility of extracting DNA from the terracotta warriors themselves. These statues were crafted using clay sourced from the region surrounding the tomb, and it's conceivable that trace amounts of human DNA could have become embedded in the clay during the manufacturing process. While this approach is highly speculative, it offers a non-destructive way to potentially gain insights into the emperor's genetic makeup. The quest to unlock the secrets of Qin Shi Huang's DNA is a long and arduous one, filled with technological challenges and ethical considerations, but the potential rewards are simply too great to ignore. If we can overcome these obstacles and gain access to his genetic code, we could rewrite our understanding of Chinese history and gain unprecedented insights into the life and legacy of one of the world's most influential figures. The tomb remains silent for now, but the scientific community is listening intently, eagerly awaiting the day when the emperor's DNA can finally speak. For centuries, Qin Shi Huang has been celebrated as a visionary, a unifier, the architect of the very idea of China. But behind the gleaming facade of imperial power, whispers of courtly intrigue and personal scandal echo down through the ages, suggesting a far more complex picture than the one typically presented in history books. And while DNA may offer tantalizing clues to the emperor's ancestry, it's within the labyrinthine corridors of the Qin court that we find the true seeds of his power, his paranoia, and perhaps the key to unlocking some of his greatest mysteries. Let's be honest, folks. The story of Qin Shi Huang's court reads like a historical soap opera, complete with power grabs, betrayals, and enough backstabbing to make even the most seasoned politician blush. We're talking about an environment where trust was a luxury and survival depended on mastering the art of deception. To truly understand the emperor, we have to dive headfirst into this viper's nest of political maneuvering. Consider the figure of Lu Bue. Officially, he was a prominent minister, a key advisor to the young King Zheng, the future Qin Shi Huang. But the rumors painted a much more scandalous picture. Whispers persisted that Lu Bue was far more than just an advisor. He was, according to some accounts, the emperor's real father. The story goes that Lu Bue, a wealthy merchant with political ambitions, cleverly orchestrated his lover Zhao Ji to become the king's concubine. When she later gave birth to Zheng, the line between legitimate heir and political pawn became irrevocably blurred. Now, this isn't just salacious gossip. It strikes at the very heart of Qin Shi Huang's legitimacy. If he wasn't truly of royal blood, his claim to the throne, his divine right to rule, would be built on a foundation of lies. This alone would have cast a long shadow over his reign, fueling anxieties and potentially shaping his ruthless approach to consolidating power. Imagine the constant fear of exposure, the awareness that his entire empire rested on a carefully constructed deception. It's a breeding ground for paranoia, wouldn't you agree? And paranoia, the emperor certainly had. He was famously obsessed with immortality, not necessarily out of a desire to live forever, but perhaps from a deep-seated fear of losing control. He dispatched expeditions to search for mythical elixirs, consulted with alchemists, and reportedly even consumed mercury, believing it held the key to eternal life. Ironically, this quest for immortality likely contributed to his early demise, but it wasn't just his personal life that was shrouded in secrecy. The Qin dynasty was characterized by its strict legalist philosophy, emphasizing absolute obedience and harsh punishments. Dissent was not tolerated, and critics were often silenced, sometimes permanently. The infamous burning of books and burying of scholars incident, though perhaps exaggerated in its scope, reflects this intolerance of opposition and the emperor's determination to control the narrative. Think about it. A ruler who burns books is a ruler who fears knowledge. A ruler who buries scholars is a ruler who silences dissent. These actions speak volumes about the kind of power Qin Shi Huang wielded and the lengths he was willing to go to maintain it. This suppression of intellectual freedom created an environment of fear and suspicion, making it even harder to separate fact from fiction when it comes to understanding his reign. Moreover, the sheer scale of the emperor's projects like the Great Wall and his own massive tomb speaks to a level of control and ruthlessness that goes far beyond mere genetic predispositions. The construction of these monuments involved the forced labor of hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom died under harsh conditions. This human cost is often glossed over in the grand narrative of imperial achievement, but it's a crucial part of the story. It reminds us that power, especially absolute power, comes at a price, and that price is often paid by the most vulnerable. So, while DNA analysis may one day reveal fascinating details about Qin Shi Huang's ancestry and physical characteristics, it's important to remember that genetics only tells a small part of the story. The true mysteries of China's first emperor lie not just in his genes, but in the complex web of power, secrets, and scandals that defined his court and shaped his reign. It's in understanding the political machinations, the personal anxieties, and the brutal realities of the Qin dynasty that we can begin to truly unravel the enigma of this controversial and undeniably influential figure. Maybe the real treasures aren't the terracotta army or the rivers of Mercury, but the untold stories whispered behind closed doors, the hidden agendas that fueled his ambition, and the sacrifices made in the name of unity. Because let's face it, the history of empires is rarely written in DNA, it's written in blood, sweat, and tears. And in the case of Qin Shi Huang, perhaps a healthy dose of carefully crafted lies as well.